Hi Lee, Lucy, Christian here. Right, so what's actually been requested in the tender is please provide a quote for 60 devices to install an anti-flood device in GRH. The devices are already on site, so that's what the tender says. Now, an anti-flood device is a little bit different than the work that actually needs doing. This here is an anti-flood device. So basically, the water travels through that way. As soon as it gets, it's not an exact science, but 3 gallon, 15 litres or so in one push, this will cut the water supply off, and then anything downstream will be cut off. So it's a leak protection device. But that's not just what GRH needs, and it's indeed not what they've got in stock, because Gloucester bought 60 odd, I think, WRAS approved rails, and this is just one important part of a WRAS approved rail. So what was concerning me by the tender doc that you guys have put in to ask a company to install 60 anti-flood devices, that process for the hospital would literally take 25 seconds. But there's more plumbing work that's involved for GRH than what you're thinking there is, and I'd like to explain. So underneath the sink at the moment, in the vast majority of locations, because it's been fitted by a plumber and not a water cooler installer, you've got one of these. Effectively what this is a washing machine valve. So you have that underneath the sink, belongs to the hospital, and that is typically to fit either a washing machine or a dishwasher. This thread here, 3/4 BSP, happens to be exactly the same thread that's on the end of a water cooler fitting. So what a plumber comes along and does is he thinks, oh right, that'll fit on the end of that washing machine valve, which I've already installed under the sink, and then that can feed the water cooler. Now he would be quite right, that would work and has been working for a number, however long the coolers have been installed in GRH. The problem that we had with the flood at Cheltenham was that is exactly how the system was installed. So once the leak came from the system downstream, this thing, no protection against anything really, and it just carried on leaking all night. Now, what concerned me about your tender asking to fit an anti-flood device, basically to fit an anti-flood device, watch how quick and easy it is. Whoop. If you don't drop the fittings. There you go. Anti-flood device with an off switch. That is better than what they've got at the minute. I wouldn't say it's useless, because it isn't, but it's borderline useless, and let me explain why. The actual work that needs doing at GRH is the installation of a proper fit for purpose installation rail, and an installation rail looks like that. So what that contains, and that goes on the end of your copper, and the reason why there's more plumbing work involved is you can't leave that fitting on. It's now rendered a useless fitting because that has to go onto your plumbing work. What happens then is, in order to take this off, we need to cut the water supply off here. So we need to chase it upstream until we find a service valve, if indeed there is one, to cut this water off, because this needs removing. I've only hand tightened them, so it's easy for me to remove them. But basically, that needs removing. The pipe may or may not need renewing, depending on whether that olive has then got stuck on. But we'd just cut the pipe probably and maybe extend it. And then the olive fitting and the compression fitting need to go on like that. So this here isn't a washing machine, it's a one-way valve, so it only lets water travel one way. It's called a double check valve. So once water has gone downstream, it stops cross-contamination from going back upstream again. So that's the first point of call, and there's your hand. That every customer needs a handheld thing to, because you don't want to go hunting for a screwdriver if you have got a leak. So that's what that contains. So that's a double check valve. This thing here is a pressure reducing device. So if you have 7 bar going in this way, this will reduce it to the maximum what is allowed for the correct installation of a water cooler, which is about 3 bar, 3.5 bar. And then you have your anti-leak device on the end. So that effectively is the system that needs fitting in the hospital. And from here to here is what Gloucester, not Cheltenham. I understand that Cheltenham have got 71 of these devices. 56 it looks like. But anyway, Gloucester have bought all their devices from us, so I know exactly what we've sent them, and it's these. I don't know what Cheltenham have bought, but I'm presuming it's the same thing. It won't be just an anti-leak device. So my point to you guys is you could do with rewording the tender really to say the installation of a fully approved WRAS installation rail, which will include chasing the water downstream to cut it off, to shut the water off at a service valve. Because obviously if we're fitting 120 of these things, at the moment the tender has asked us to tender for 120 of these things and a 30-second job, where 120 installing these things, when sometimes you need to be lifting ceiling tiles out the way to find service valves to shut this water supply off here, they're going to take a lot longer to install. So I just wanted to point that out. Hopefully you didn't have to listen to too much waffle, but I do hope that helps. Thank you.